All right. All right. So we are here. This is where we at, bro?
Camarillo Crit.
It's Camarillo Crit.
Cam Crit.
Cam Crit is in Camarillo. It's out by Thousand Oaks.
Yeah.
Happens every Thursday during daylight savings.
6 o'clock, 6 p.m.
6 p.m. start. It's 50 laps total. 10 laps are neutral to get the legs warmed up, and then the last 40 laps is all gas.
Yeah, I think that's a nice touch. I love the 10-lap warm-up. It allows you time to kind of like socialize and really just warm the legs up. You don't jump straight into it. Sometimes it's good to jump on the bike and go, right away. But the 10-lap is a really nice touch. I really like that.
I agree. There's some really good information in here about, conserving energy, how to ride in the pack. Jesse and I had two different objectives in this race. I wanted to make the race really hard and fast from the gun, and then just kind of like just ride outside my limit and then kind of see what I was working with in the end.
Yeah, I think my objective was to just kind of read the race. I was running a higher tire pressure today. I really wanted to see kind of what that would feel like on a smoother course. We've been running pretty low as of lately. Like, I think I've been running like 70 ish around that area, 70 to 80. I wanted to do that, and I just wanted to get back into like really good decision making. And so I was out here to kind of really just like focus in, lock in on saving and conserving energy, and also making good decisions. My camera is the camera where you can see my hands. Dante's camera is the camera where it's just an open screen. He's running his GoPro under his bars. My GoPro is on top of my bars.
We got Joyce from the Aviators here too, which was really sick. And then Justin from Legion and your boy from the Blazers. So
Full WR Devo squad.
The whole squad's out here,
So.
And Joyce has been riding really, really strong. And this was not a slow one. We were moving.
No, yeah, we were riding really hard actually. And Joyce here doesn't want to pull through, which is smart of her. it's the beginning of the race, and she's looking to test her sprint out, and obviously the level is a bit higher than she's used to, so she's going to conserve energy and make sure that she can finish the ride. Dante decides to attack again because he's just riding hard for no reason. And for me, this is great. And my thing is like looking at where I want to fit in the field right now. I see Joyce. I know Joyce is on my wheel, so I'm just accelerating it up smooth. Something that you should think about doing is like sometimes when the Peloton accelerates, you don't have to go full gas to jump in. You can kind of like let it float to you, float backwards and slowly bring it up to speed, and you conserve energy that way.
Exactly. And that's literally exactly what you're doing. You did right here. Like you floated probably 15 spots back, but you're not, there's like 60 people in the field. So you're not out of position, and you're literally back to the front, up with me, and then Bart's on the screen right now. So it's really perfect, and it's a good way to stretch out your effort without spiking your power and your heart rate getting elevated way too high, which is definitely not needed. So we're definitely in a bit of a reshuffle at the moment. There's some stragglers up the road, which can be tempting at times too. But like, as you can see, there's some ones and twos here. But like when that's happening, like again, you don't need to jump across to it, especially like they're looking for help too. That's why they keep looking back.
And for me right now, I'm just feeling the Peloton now. Whenever you jump into a race or a ride, if you want to, I always believe in you train how you race. And so for me, if the Peloton is riding fast and there's momentum in the Peloton and people are riding forward, I'm letting people in. I'm like encouraging people to pull through, anything to make it faster, because what my goal is to look for moves that actually matter. And sometimes I think people get carried away with fighting at the front for no real reason. And if your objective is not to just be at the front all day, or if you're not going for a preem, or you're not going for a breakaway, then there's not a lot of reason to be wasting energy fighting forward. So I just continue to drift back. The Peloton, the speed is good. The Peloton's riding aggressive. I love it. So I'm just conserving energy in the wheels.
Yeah, which is really, really good. And you just did it again where you're drifting back. And then for some people that can be super intimidating because you feel like you're going too far back, but you still stay on the gas a little bit, which you can see because your power shows up on the screen. Like you're still doing 350 watts as they're passing you, but it comes a moment where you can just slot right back in, and we're going 26, 28, 27 miles an hour again. And again, your heart rate's barely at 140 and you're chilling.
Yeah, I'm chilling. And my goal is to move up when it's easy. I move up when the front of the field balloons, or I'll move up when I have a bunch of momentum, but never moving up for no reason and never moving up when the peloton's at its fastest. So, you know,
And that's good to pay attention to in races where, like, if you see that if you're in the back or middle and you see that it's kind of strung out, like single file, that's not the time to move up. Just be a little bit patient, wait a lap, wait half a lap, 2 laps. And then when you see it get into twos and threes, that means the field is slowing, and that's a better time to move up, make up a few spots, and you got to be patient with it.
yeah, now it's getting a bit spicy. I'm starting to take a bit of pulls because the peloton's getting a bit strung off, and it's go time. There's a lot of attacking happening. Here's an attack up the inside. I had so much momentum just now on the inside. I think Dante just chased. There was a group up the road, and then Dante did a move to chase that down. I was maybe 3 or 4 guys back. It had been going hard for like 2 or 3 laps. And so this is like the perfect time to hit people. And like, again, looking for good moves, even if you're starting it. The field just slowed up into that corner, and I didn't even get out of the saddle. I just accelerated. It's still a big acceleration. I think I'm doing like 700 or 800 watts, but I get like 10, 15 seconds, like pretty quickly.
Yeah, I remember watching, and we were all like watching, and then it was like one of those things where you looked good, you didn't look back, you weren't looking for help, and we're like, oh, we have to like bring this back. And we're riding at this point, but he's still on the gas, like he's still doing 400 watts and 29 miles an hour, like he's still on the gas. So like, and then you can see he's starting to use the people in front of him to take a little bit of that wind as well, and then setting up for the turns perfectly. So like, it was a really good move, and it took us a few laps to actually bring you back.
Yeah, and I'm not particularly trying to ride solo, but I definitely know that it's the group was already strung off. So I know that people are hurting behind me. So I'm just finding a pace that I'm comfortable with until I get brought back. And I ended up getting brought back by one person, and we rode for a couple laps, and I just wasn't committing to. It was just going to be me and him, and still a bit early, and I could tell that the field was still a bit strong and willing to work together. So I just, chopped through at what I could chop through, and that wasn't enough to stay away. So we ended up coming back.
Yeah, and then now there's a bit of a reshuffle. You can see that I'm drifting back as well. I'm looking around and seeing, like, trying to read the body language of other people, which is a really good tactic, especially when there's a bit of a swell, which is when people are starting to bunch together. Read the body language, see how people are looking, how they're feeling, because that's going to also kind of give you a breakdown of how the rest of the race is going to be. And it's usually a halfway point where you can make that.
Yeah, and it feels you can tell the field's a bit tired. It's a bit swollen and spread out, and so now there's moves going up the road again. After half lap, lap of rest. And it's like, if you need to rest, and you should. Right here, I think it's got a bit out of hand. Dante goes. I like see him going. There's a good group of guys up the road, and I could see they're rotating. I'm always looking through the peloton, looking at the riders up the road to see if they're rotating. And Dante takes a super long pull right now, and I know this is another move that I know is going to set me up so perfectly for a counter, because coming out of this corner, I think that he's going to look back and make me pull, but the guy in front of him loves to pull, and he loves to pull, so he just keeps going because he's on a mission today.
Which is very true, because my thought process when I made the move is like, this is going to hurt people, and even then, like, I'm trying to at least get a little bit of the gap, because I know Justin's with me at this point, but if we keep going, then we'll establish a gap and we'll catch the guys in front of us. So like, I knew who was up the road, so I'm just like, I was going to pull off into this corner and then look back and see what the damage was. And then we had a few people with you. I think there's about 5 people with us at that point.
Yeah, I think I took a really short pull at that point, actually. The group in front of us is, I think it's 3 guys. They are working really cohesively. And so, I take a pretty short pull. It's probably like 10 seconds to test and see who's going to do what, and if people are still riding. And as you can see, the peloton is still together, still working cohesively. So for me, my strength is in the sprint. If people are going to ride, I'm going to like help them ride as much as I need to. And my job becomes keeping the momentum going. But everyone's working.
And they're still like at a reasonable like the group, the three guys up the road are still at a reasonable gap. So they're probably within like 10, 15 seconds if.
So if you just saw, there was a move that just happened where one of the guys in front of us opened the gap and just basically set up and then realized that I wasn't going to come through, and then had to end up chasing anyway. You got to be really careful about when you sit up and why you sit up, because 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna, like someone like me, I'm gonna make you chase. You opened it, you closed it. And he closed it and I didn't get on, and so the people behind me had to do a massive effort. And so like I basically hit it into the next corner, and so you see me right here, just like really putting some pressure on the people behind me that didn't come around and close the gap and waited for me to close the gap. If I'm gonna close the gap, I'm gonna close it so hard. You're going to be very uncomfortable. And so that's what I just did. I waited till corner because I can typically get in and out of quarters faster than people.
Here's a really good moment where you're following this guy who's a fellow Canyon rider, which I really appreciate.
Ooh.
Who's really, really strong. And you made that notice pretty early into the ride that this guy is really strong and he's going to be a pretty decisive person into the race. So like what's going on in this section right here?
Yeah, be careful of showing your cards too early, because like I already know that he's willing to ride because he's the rider that came across to me when I made that first big move, and he came across and he was taking some really hard chops through. I was riding at like 300, 320, and he would come through and I would go from riding 320, 300 on the front to 400 on his wheel. So I knew how strong he was. So I don't want to give him too much space, because I know that he is gonna ride. So if I have to chase him, I'm going to have to like commit to closing the gap. It's going to be harder to bring him back. And B, if he gets up the road with someone else that wants to ride, then it becomes even harder. So I keep a pretty close eye on him throughout the ride, because I'm queuing off of him and knowing that he wants to get off the front. So right now, there was a move where a couple guys went off the front off of a counter. I think Dante had just got off the front. Either he was going across or he was, he started chasing. And there's 3 guys off the front, including the guy in the blue that I just mentioned. And this is like a now or never moment.
And you had so much momentum that even by the time that I had reacted to it, you would have had like 5 seconds on me and you would have been going 35.
800 watts.
Yeah. And it just didn't make any sense for me. And I was like, and it was just too late. Plus, like you said, I just came back from an effort, and it was like, it
would have taken a lot out of you. So basically, I just bridged up to this breakaway. It was a moment of panic. It's at that time during the race. I think we got like 20 laps to go or something. I look up the road and I see these guys rotating. I see the guy that chased me down and was working with me earlier in the move. There's, this kid, Michael, it's Leo Bowtie. There's a couple of like local guys that are really strong. Michael's a mountain biker. And I don't even know how many of these crits he's done, but there he is in the block, extremely strong, a young guy, just willing to put it all out there. And I see them rotating up the road. So my first thought is, okay, great. There's a little bit of panic, and something that you should recognize in racing is like sometimes you got to just go. And that was definitely one of those moments where like I hit the boosters to get across to this, trying to get a little bit of recovery after bridging. And then I start rotating through with them and managing the gap. My goal is always to be here. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily my job to push the breakaway or to force the breakaway to stick. Mm-hmm. Like I'm good with the breakaway, but I'm also good with going back to the field, you know? And so right now I'm pulling through. I'm not pulling as hard as they are pulling. I'm trying to check the body language of the guys that I'm with, who's strong, who's not strong, how long they're pulling, where they're pulling. There's a lot of things that I don't even think about. There's a kid on my wheel right now, and I gave him like 3 or 4 laps. He came across with me, actually. He sat on the whole time. And I gave him like 3 or 4 laps to recover, and he wouldn't come through and take a pull. So right here is me sitting up, letting the breakaway go. He's on my right side right now. He comes around. He's not closing the gap, and so I hit him. And if you're in the breakaway and you're not pulling, this is probably going to happen to you.
That is a child.
Well, you got to learn. You're going to learn today. Okay.
Which is also like a really unique and important thing. I feel like if you got to understand like your situation in the breakaway too. If you best like understand your best chances of survival, like if
Statistics.
statistics, right? Like if I'm in the break and I'm not really a sprinter, and if I'm in the break with Justin and there's four of us, like I'm gonna get either first or fourth, and I'd rather take my chance out of a break with Justin than to take my chances out of and in the field with him. So if I'm not gonna like pull or I'm gonna like disrupt the break because he's here, I'm actually hurting my chances, and I'd rather gamble the break with him than to gamble where he's most comfortable, which is in the
Right.
field.
And there's a couple of things happening. Like if you're in this position and you feel like you're dying, um, the breakaway is not going to let you sit on. It's sometimes easier to rotate through and just to go through, take a short pull, and get off the front, and try to be as smooth as possible. But typically, the guys in the breakaway, after you sit on for a while, will take turns doing this to you. In this instance, it only took me one like really good attack to get rid of them, and then I ride back to the breakaway, and they give me a little bit of rest, and then I get back into the rotation.
And now we're coming into the closing laps, and like we've all been riding pretty hard at the whole like 40 laps. And what's going on at this point?
So at this point, there was a couple of feelers. There was an attack at 10 laps ago. Michael, kid in black, thought that 10 laps ago was 1 lap to go. So he sprinted, and that like kind of like started the whole thing. And then I countered him, but just a soft kind of feeler, see who was doing what the legs look like. And 10 laps ago is a really good spot to start. I was looking back, I couldn't even see the peloton. I was assuming we had somewhere between 30 and 40 seconds. So that's a really good point to start attacking. So if you have all of those variables, like you got 40 seconds, the field's starting to attack, and all of these different dynamics are happening right now. We're chasing Leo countered me, so like Leo's off the front now, so it's the shit's starting. And I'm just trying to feel out who's doing what. My heart rate's a little bit higher than I would like it to be, but we're doing 500 watts. And we're just like testing each other. We're still kind of cooperating, but we're also, trying to throw some feelers out there.
And it's a good point too, because like depending on the gap depends on how much you guys can kind of like play these games. Like if the gap was like 15 seconds, you guys need to cooperate until the last lap essentially. But if you got 40 seconds, you can kind of mess around a little bit and like fluctuate the speed, and then still have the gap at a reasonable.
And as the gap is coming down, the better it is for me. Like if the gap comes down, typically I have like a teammate in the peloton, but like I just don't, as long as I don't get caught within like 2 laps, I can pretty much recover and do a good sprint. So the smaller the gap, the better it is for the sprinter, because what it allows me to do is I can sit on now, because if we go back to the peloton, it still doesn't matter to me. You know what I mean? As like I said, as long as I don't get caught within the last 2 laps, I'm still going to get a decent result going back to the field. So it just puts me in a position of power.
And now I think we're going into 2 to go, if I'm not mistaken. And look,
we just got caught Leo trying to figure out what's going on. I'm like, Leo had been kind of just taking some baby chops, and then he attacked us, and I was like, bro, now you have to ride. Like, I'm not gonna like, you've been taking these little baby chops all day. I've been letting them slide. But after that attack, I'm like, I want him in front of me, and I'm at this point, I'm saying I'm not working anymore. You guys can attack me or attack each other. I'm gonna sit back here. It's only 4 of us, so I would rather play this from the back. I'm trying to test out who's doing what. Yeah, there's already some big efforts that happened. So I'm, thinking to myself, do I hit them early, or do I, make it a field sprint? And, I just felt like there was so much accelerating in the last 10 laps that it would be interesting to see who would chase and what would happen if I hit them going into 1. So my goal was to hit them into 1, and if anyone got on, to basically like egg them on into carrying me to the line, but I had a lot of gas. So I hit out. This is going into 1 lap to go. I think I'm doing like 1,700. I got to work on that. I get a bit excited. So instead, like really that attack could have been like 1,200 watts and it would have been fine. But, just standing up out of the corner again where the pace is the slowest, and I'm like ripping by people right now. I'm like ripping by people, just dodging, and then into the home straight. I look back, I see I got the gap, and then I shut the boosters off. It's 186, 188. Oh yeah. Oh, I just saw 189. I'm old. That's real high. That's a real high heart rate for me. I know, but I look around the corner. It's done. We mission accomplished. Really efficient race from my perspective. Really enjoyed kind of navigating that finish, and getting back to a mindset where it's about efficiency. It's about conserving energy. It's about knowing when to use matches, and then ended up being a dub.
It's really cool because even for me, like on the opposite end, like watching and like made mistakes and learn from those mistakes too. And this is the place to do it. Like I rather do this here than to do it in a race or in a big race. And this is the time to do it. And that's why we race crits, and doing a crit practice like this makes it all worth it in the end.
You got to race how you train. And at the end of the day, I think I know that I'm really good at crits because I've done a crit, every every Tuesday and Thursday for, since I was, I would say 15. Yeah. So 15 or like maybe 28. I lived in LA. We would do Rose Bowl or Hughes Park on Tuesday, maybe NPR or Westchester Parkway ride. And then on Thursday, we would do sometimes NPR in the morning, and then Hughes Park. Is it Hughes Park or Heritage Park? No, Hughes Park is Long Beach, and then Heritage Park is it's like Whittier. So you have to really hone your skills in these training rides. Practice taking good lines, practice momentum control, practice navigation of finishes, and how you want to enter and exit sprints. Find the best rider and follow them around and see what lines they take, see when they're using energy and when they're not using energy, because at the end of the day, there's so much gold in these group rides, and you can really capitalize on becoming a better athlete and better bike racer by really paying attention to the guys that have done it and have the results to prove that.
And it's really not about how much power you can do and like your watts per kilo when it comes to crits. Like obviously you need to be fit, but it's you need to learn how to maneuver and handle your bike and learn how to read the race. And like sometimes the smartest person in the race will win against the strongest person in the race.
Strongest person never wins crits, almost ever. And that's what I love about crits. It's a chess match at 30 miles an hour, and you really have to know how to adjust, stay calm in the moments where you need to be calm, and panic and go all in the moments where you need to panic and go all in. The finesse of criterium racing is so cool to me and so fascinating. And I'm never the strongest guy in a race, so it kind of evens the playing field when you can learn these different techniques and strategies that level the playing field.
So hope you guys like this video. If you did, we'll be making
like and subscribe.
There'll be many more where they come from. And until next time, brother.